Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo says he has no bias or prejudice against any person. He was responding to questions posed to him on his work at the State Capture Commission. Zondo is currently interviewing for the Chief Justice position. Commissioners presented Zondo with some of the serious objections that were raised against his nominations for the position. The veteran jurist told the Judicial Service Commission that he was not biased towards the current administration. Zondo has faced criticism for his handling of the State Capture Commission, which was established by former President Jacob Zuma. The acting Chief Justice says these allegations are perceptions that are void of facts.
In the work of the Commission, the President gave evidence, and like every witness, his evidence will have to be weighed up, assessed. I haven't gone to dealing with most of his evidence, and I will have to make findings. But as I said earlier on, with this job, you have got to do the job, make the findings you make, accept that you may make enemies, but also accept that you may make findings against anybody, including the President. So if there is enough evidence that justifies a finding against the President, that finding will be made. But no finding will be made against the President if there is no evidence that justifies it. Just as with regard to former President Zuma, where I've made any finding against him, I've done so because there is evidence. But where there's no evidence, I will not make any finding against President Zuma when there is no evidence. I will not make any finding against anybody when there's no evidence, but I will make a finding against anybody if the evidence justifies it. And if I must suffer any consequences for that, it's fine.
SABC News reporter Hasina Gori is following proceedings very closely. Let's chat to her now. Hasina, welcome back. It's obviously to be expected that Justice Raymond Zondo would have been grilled, particularly with the State Capture Commission. How was the mood like this morning there?
Good afternoon. Yes, quite a different day. We felt a very different energy this morning with the security sweep being done. And, you know, as you mentioned, Justice Raymond Zondo, no stranger, and we expected these very hard questions to come out quite an easy and a calm manner in which he's been responding to these questions, saying that he expected to be grilled. You can see he's been prepared for it, really having his answers there, responding to questions around the State Capture Commission, which he's been part of for the last few years, which has been very public and had a lot of interest in it because of the wide-ranging implications around it. But I want to bring in someone we chatted to this morning as well from the Black Lawyers Association's Gauteng division. Theo, thank you so much for joining us. We spoke ahead of these proceedings this morning. We had that anticipation of what was expected. How's the morning been for you so far, just following these proceedings?
You've called it, Hasina, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly not as spectacular as it was yesterday. But of course, you know, my key takeouts from the Chief Justice interview relate to, firstly, his conduct of the State Capture Commission. That was obviously uppermost in many people's minds. They expected that question to come through. One of the questions that I think it came from Commissioner Nochesi is a very important question because it relates to the inevitability of the report being reviewed, and should the acting Chief Justice get appointed, he would obviously have to preside over that process. Even if it's not him directly, the implication might be that because he's the Chief Justice, he may prevail upon other judges who may eventually have to decide on whether they set aside the report or not. That's my key takeout from this morning's proceedings. But obviously, you also had the issue relating to the attack on the judiciary. His response to Minister Sisulu's letter, for instance. I expected those things to come through, but generally, I get a sense that he acquitted himself very well.
He also mentioned that there was questions on his impartiality and bias towards the current administration. How important is it for the next Chief Justice to be someone that seems to be independent from the politics of the country as well?
There's a reason why the Constitution insists that a judicial officer has to be fit and proper. There's a reason why the Constitution insists that a judicial officer has to be impartial. It is so because he must not be beholden to interests other than interest of justice, of serving justice. It's very important that he dispels that sort of misunderstanding or misconception that he favors one person over another.
We heard from one of the commissioners that there was actually 8 objections towards his nomination. Do you feel that those objections are ones that need to be looked at very carefully? Are there serious concerns around his fitness to hold office?
Well, you guys in the media would know that the State Capture Commission just finished its work recently. So obviously, one would expect a lot of complaints and objections coming from that quarter. I have no doubt that if there is any merit in the complaints, the JSC would look very deeply into them.
One of the questions that has been posed to all the candidates around from Tuesday has been if they are appointed to Chief Justice and have to sit in disciplinary hearings or have to reprimand a judge that is, sitting on a bar on a bench that below them, how would they be able to handle that matter? How is acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo's response to this?
No, the response, if you noticed, is a response that almost replicates the response that was given by other candidates. The legal profession, the tenet of the legal profession is that a lawyer has to be beholden to serving the interest of justice. So the fact that the Chief Justice knows this or the other judge shouldn't really arise. It's neither here nor there. The main question to be answered is the following. Is he impartial? Is he objective? Is he fit and proper?
And when it comes to the judicial sector as a whole, we're hearing of these threats. We've seen, as you said, Minister Sisulu's opinion piece that she penned, but also hearing from Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo today saying there have been threats really since state capture, but not just on him, but other high-level judges. As the legal profession, are you concerned with these attacks?
Well, to the extent that the attacks may be unwarranted or unjustified, we are obviously concerned because, as you know, the judiciary is one of the most important pillars of a democracy, a constitutional democracy. But we don't want to be blowing things out of proportion. To the extent that some criticism, some valid criticism is issued to the judiciary, we welcome that. That is the lifeblood of a constitutional democracy. You must have people criticizing the judiciary if they feel that the judiciary is not acting in terms of the Constitution. After all, the Constitution is the most important document in the country. So everybody has a right to criticize. But of course, we have to caution against criticizing or attacking the judiciary unjustifiably.
Thank you so much. That was the Black Lawyers Association Gauteng chairperson speaking to us here at the lunch break of the fourth day, the final day of interviews. The fourth candidate, that is Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, being vetted for that permanent position of Chief Justice. We've had 3 other candidates from Tuesday really going through quite lengthy interviews. Yesterday's interview ran for almost 10 hours. The others all seem to have run for 8 hours, with 21 commissioners asking and posing some really serious questions around the judicial experience of the candidates, as well as their leadership qualities and administrative qualities, all the qualities that are looked for when choosing and appointing the next Chief Justice, as who will not only be the most senior judge of the Constitutional Court, but also be the head of the judiciary and the final authority on the court. We've heard from all of the different candidates on what their vision would be, many talking on access to justice, as well as the modernization of the courts, but a lot on impartiality and the independence of the various candidates coming out as well. Gender transformation, also a topic that have come out quite a lot over the last 4 days. So this is what we've heard so far. Raymond Zondo still on that seat today, facing questions around some of the issues that come out from the State Capture Commission. We were heard just before the break that there's been almost 8 objections towards his nomination. He's responded to some of those, really in a calm, measured manner, not really getting flustered or emotional, saying that he's prepared himself and he expected this kind of grilling, saying that he has no bias or prejudice and has only found against certain people because there were evidence, that led to that. So this is what's been coming out. We know that once this concludes the process, tomorrow the commissioners will then sit for a day of deliberations before they write a report that will be forwarded to the president, and he will then nominate the next Chief Justice.
An excellent job there done by my colleague Hasina Gori on following the proceedings that have been happening this weekend. She says that tomorrow they'll be sitting and deliberating on the next step, and after that, obviously, recommendations taken to the president.